Hi everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. My name is Angelia and today I'm doing Friday reads for Friday I don't know, let me look at the calendar. Friday the 6th, January 6th. All right, so this week I did read 2 books and a couple other little things I'm going to talk about. Okay, but let's start with TV shows as is my custom. So we finished Bad Sisters, which was an Irish, very, very dark comedy, and we really did enjoy it. The acting is really good. The group of sisters is very believable. Some of the plot is becomes a little bit hard to swallow, especially by the very last episode. But it's a lot of fun. But it's super dark and nasty. So if you prefer a more feel-good kind of show, this is not it, but we enjoyed it. And then now we started watching the morning show, which is kind of based on a show similar to the Today Show. So if you kind of think about when the Matt Lauer scandal happened, this is kind of the setup. The anchors of this show, or long-running anchors, are played by Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell. And Steve Carell has been accused of sexual impropriety at work, and so he has been fired. He is excellent in the role as a man who does not grasp why his behavior is unacceptable now, and she's also really good. Jennifer Aniston's excellent in this role. I feel like we're talking about how she seems like an underrated actress, but she's really good in this dramatic role. There's lots of funny parts. Also, Mark Duplass is in it. He's great. And Reese Witherspoon. And so she's suddenly without an anchor, and she's trying to take a hold of the narrative at this place where they're trying to get her to sign a contract without all the things that she has requested. She starts to get wind that maybe they're trying to get rid of her and put in somebody new, and so she kind of does a bold move to try to take control of the situation. So that's all I'm going to say. We've just watched a few episodes so far, but we are enjoying that show. All right, so on to bookish things. One thing that I always do in the first week of the year is set up my reading journal for the year. I don't talk about my reading journal a lot on the channel. I kind of mention it now and then, but I've been keeping a written reading journal for many, many, many years, at least more than, oh gosh, maybe somewhere between, well, I started before my daughter was born. She's 21. So I would say somewhere, maybe not 25 years, but somewhere in there. And I have all of them. I don't like spend a whole lot of time going back through them, but every now and then I'll open old ones at random just to see what I was reading at different points in time, and it's fun to look at. But what I do, just real quick, I know you're just dying to know, well, what do you do with your journal, Angelia? These are the ones I used last year. I started with this, I ran out, and then I did this. There are some pages left in this one, but not enough, and I don't like it to like start and then almost right away have to go to a new one. It's just like, I don't know, a little fiddly thing. So I'm just using the leftover pages for notes, like when I'm planning a video and things like that. But so I got a new one to start the new year. So I did order this one, and it came yesterday. And I just have all these like specific things. It has to be within a certain size range. And it has to, when you open it, it has to lie flat. And the lined paper has to be, not too skinny. And I mean, I just have all this things. So I did find one that I like. And what I do is the very first thing I do is I set up the consideration list. Wait, is that working? Yeah. I set up the consideration list, and that's where I jot down all of the books that I'm thinking about reading all year long, things that I hear reviews of or I see on somebody's channel that sound interesting to me. I just kind of keep them all here so I can refer to them when I'm going to read a book, buy a book, borrow a book from the library, whatever. I kind of like my master list. TBR. All right, so I got that rolling for this year, and then I did read a couple of books this week. So the first book that I read, I started it the other day. I might have mentioned it a little bit, but Where Angels Fear to Tread by Ian Forster. This is for the Forster read along that is being hosted by Jen, the librarian, at her channel. And so this is the January selection. And I have been wanting to reread Forster novels anyway, so I thought this would be a really fun way to do it this year. But this one I had never read. Even though I've had this copy of this book around for a long, long time, I had not actually read it. And I guess I'll talk about it more in whatever format that discussion takes. But my impressions of it were, and I can't wait to hear what other people say, but I found it to be a rather uneven book. And a lot of people, they take 2 or 3 books to really hit their stride. And I feel like that is the case, at least with this book. Forster wrote this in his 20s. It was his first novel, and there's things in there that are like the glimmers of the greatness that is yet to come, but I didn't feel like everything came together to be as good as some of his other books that I have read before. There are laugh out loud funny bits, but then the plot kind of takes a turn, and my problem is not the plot taking the turn, it's that it's just kind of jarring. So in this book, I'm going to tell a little bit without spoilers because I know other people are getting ready to read it, but there is a woman who is a young widow. She has a little girl, and she lives within the confines of her very prim and proper in-laws. They've never really approved of her. They feel like she's always about to do something embarrassing or poorly thought out at every moment, and so they've devoted a lot of energy to trying to channel her the way they think she should go. And she goes off on this trip to Italy with a younger woman, ostensibly as the chaperone, but really they've asked the younger one, who is very conventional, to keep an eye on the older one. Well, that doesn't really work out because no sooner have they been in Italy for a few months than she meets this hot local dude and falls in love. And so then everybody's horrified, and family members rush down to try to head this off at the pass, to no avail. So that's all I'm going to tell you about the plot setup. Very funny scenes about just the whole situation and what they should do to try to keep her from marrying this local villager in Italy. So I'm kind of thinking from that beginning and from the way the blurb is written in the book that the story is going to be a story of finding love in an unexpected place. It doesn't matter that he's poor and he's Italian and he's from the village and he's 10 years younger. It's just, love has struck. And that's not really what the story is. It actually is something very different. But you don't know that until you're, well into the book. And that's fine. I mean, it does take an interesting direction that actually makes for a more original book. But eventually at a point, something happens that kind of leaves all the comic moments by the wayside forever, because you cannot be funny after this particular event. And I'm skirting dangerously close to spoiler territory, so I will be careful. But what I do like about it, I always like the moments in books of this era where somebody is either challenging convention or rethinking their own role in what the effects of these stuffy British mores are doing to themselves and to others. And we do have some of that in this book. We have a wonderful scene where someone is considering his mother and what a person who has no real purpose in life but is just wealthy and well-connected and intelligent and has nothing really useful to do with that, what that person ends up being like and what happens. But for me overall, knowing what I know of other books yet to come, this is not my favorite Forster book, but I'm really interested to hear what other people say in that discussion. But I'm glad that I read it. I think, if you like an author, it's good to look at that in the overall scope of things. All right, so then I decided to read Agatha of Little Neon by Claire Luchette, a book that I picked up a couple of months ago. And this was really, really good. This is a quiet book with really beautiful prose. The writing's really lovely. It is the author's first book. So in this case, I'm really impressed and I'm wondering what she will do next. And it is things that I was reminded of along the way. I was reminded a little bit of Elizabeth Strout, and where a scene of not much happening, but just the quiet interaction of between two people, or the reflection upon the feelings or the memories, are just so like perfectly rendered. Also, just the overall spirit of the whole book, it kind of reminded me of early Barbara Kingsolver, like the bean trees. Um, in this story, there's a young woman named Agatha. She's one of a set of four sisters who live in a little parish, and they have a Mother Roberta is kind of in charge. And Mother Roberta is getting older. The parish is going broke. The reason why everything's going broke has to do with the priest sex scandals. But the women don't think too much about that at first. They kind of, when it comes on the news, it's sort of like, oh no, I just don't want to hear about that. They sort of sweep it under the rug. But the places are closing, people are being shuffled here and there. And so Mother Roberta gets retired and sent to the nursing home for older nuns. And the four women, she manages to find them a placement together in Rhode Island at a halfway house called Little Neon. And it is called that, and it is bright neon, like yellow green neon. And after a long bus trip, they get there and they find that it's a little home for some people with different issues of substance abuse, and they're in recovery or have recently come out of prison. And it's just a small little place with about 5 residents, and they're supposed to just live with these folks. They have to run drug checks on them, make sure they're following the house rules, and minister to them. Agatha also gets kind of voluntold into teaching some geometry classes at the local Catholic girls' high school because somebody had abruptly quit. And this is way, way out of her comfort zone because she is a very quiet natured person. She thinks a lot but talks little. And all of a sudden she has to go and teach these classes. She has to do a crash course in remembering geometry, prepare lesson plans. But she does make a friend at work that's another new teacher named Nadia. And in stepping out of the comfort zone of living with just that group of women, because in their old place they had a daycare, so they took care of babies until another daycare opened up and kind of siphoned off the business. But there was a continuity, and the very beginning of this book establishes it so beautifully, the life that she had, and then that it's going to change. The first paragraph says, Mother Roberta made the rules. No chewing gum, no bicycles, no tree nuts, no pets. Every morning she brewed the coffee, and every night she cooked the meals. Twice a year she sewed our made-to-measure habits from yards of a black poly-wool blend. She embroidered pillows, made punch from powder, wrote the homilies for the priest. When Father Thaddeus came to Lackawanna, he suggested she might take a break. Relax. She was 81, frail as filament, and had started having bad days. Lapses in memory, slips in the shower. She sometimes peed herself. Twice in 1 month, we'd had to rummage through bags of trash to search for her false teeth. So just from the first 2 paragraphs, you realize that these people have a way of life, and that way of life is about to change. And that is something that Agatha reflects on frequently in this book, is the comfort and the stability that she experienced with her fellow sisters, and how in one way she wishes that could have been her entire life, But because they have moved away and now are meeting other people and experiencing new things, she can't help but notice problems. She notices things that she's been trying not to admit to herself, and she notices things that she is unsatisfied about, and then she starts to become angry. And she is angry about a lot of things. She's angry about the limitations that the church puts on the women. She's angry about the limitations that the world is putting on women. She's angry about just the fact that she feels like they have a job to provide something for people and they're not really cutting it. She feels like she's not being able to serve people the way that she wants to. Okay, so it's really, really good. I read it really fast, so it's like somehow it's fast paced, even though not a lot happens, and I just love the way it was written. When Claire Luchette comes out with a new book, I'm definitely going to give it a look, and I really did enjoy Agatha of Little Neon. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to take this book with me. Our little road trip that I thought was like next week is all of a sudden it's tomorrow. Luckily, the book came in at the library that I wanted to read for that trip, so I have it here, and I'm hoping my thrift book order also gets here today that has the Dangerous Liaisons book in it that I'm supposed to be reading for another group that I haven't started because it's not here yet. But I'm going to start this tonight. I read the first couple pages. They were exciting. A woman wakes up in a hotel room in Portugal, and her husband is mysteriously missing. His phone locator is off, and that's as far as I got. But I was like, okay, good start. And that's it for now. What have you been reading this week? Let me know. Tell me if you've read these books that I've talked about today. And I hope you have an excellent weekend. I'll be back next week with something else. Haven't planned it yet. See you then. Bye.